Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Mile High Sports Symposium. I am JT Matthews at JTMatthews01 on Twitter, and I am here with the doctor at VR. Well, I guess I should say your name, Nicholas Manning at VR_Manning on Twitter. We are here. There's a lot to talk about today, but first, let's talk about. We have live football this week. There was a Hall of Fame game that happened. I don't know if you were able to catch any of that.
I did. I didn't think I was gonna. I was like, eh.
Yeah.
But yeah, and to be honest, it wasn't even bad. It was preseason game number 1, but it was a competitive game. Usually those games like 13-10.
Yeah. Or like 42-10.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was the lightning and all that good stuff, but that was great. Got to watch a little bit of the Hall of Fame induction. So Randy Gradishar going in. Overall, it was a fun weekend. It reminds me again that at some point going out to Canton has to be on the dues. So yeah, live football. Can't wait. How about you? Are you pumped? Are you ready?
Yeah, of course. I'm ready. Ready to see the team in action. We are going to talk about that a little bit later. I'm also ready for college football.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think Ohio State's first game is like the 30th first. So we're still a few weeks out, but we got, actual college and NFL games coming up within a month. And it feels like it's been way too long.
Yeah. Florida State plays August 24th.
Hey, you get like a whole week before me.
At Georgia Tech. So, it's you start conference play on the road. So trying to knock down that door, get in the playoff, which I feel pretty confident, even though Jordan Travis is off.
Mm-hmm.
Ugalele, former Clemson, great. Nothing like, rostering one of your biggest foes, top most recruits, and then bringing them back Death Valley. So I think he's going to play well. Excited for college football also. All that noise up at CU. It's pretty fun. Apparently, it's just Grand Theft Auto in Boulder, which was if anyone had seen the latest reports through Athlon Sports, guns, drugs, money. All right. Let's tone it down. So some degrees of that are probably true, which if you have ever participated or been around college sports, it's sleazy, man. It has been. The NIL money isn't making it any different. But that said, football.
Don't get me started. I don't want to get started on Jim Harbaugh.
I have no idea what you're talking about. And you know what? I'm just going to move the chapter, and we're on to tomorrow. Just getting better every day.
On to the next. We're just going to deny anything suspect happened under your watch. Yeah. What happened with going down with the ship? That used to be a thing, didn't it?
No, not in coaching. No, man. Like Les Miles bailed. People have taken that that bullet. Who was it? Bobby Petrino bailed right before they're going to get slapped with some stuff. Pete Carroll. Yeah. It just all right. But we brought a natty though, so we'll bounce.
I guess it's just like the vehement denial, as opposed to just like not commenting, just being like trying to appear like the consummate good guy is the thing that bugs me. I actually tweeted from our account. I didn't realize it was our account until like 30 minutes later, and I was like, oh well, I probably should have done that for my account. But about him commenting at the presser, just saying that he was raised to apologize for anything that he had done wrong, and so he's not apologizing. I was like, man, that's a fake good guy right there. That's what I think.
Yeah. Saban did leave the Dolphins high and dry. That was after 2 seasons though. He went back. But I don't know if LSU, because he was there, he's at Michigan State and LSU. I don't know if they had any big things. So they couldn't hack it in the NFL. And not everyone's style is for everyone. Did see good old Nick though on Hard Knocks, talking with Matt Eberflus. Apparently Eberflus played for Nick Saban. at Toledo.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know either, and to be honest, I don't know why it like mattered to me, but I thought it was interesting.
It is interesting.
Yeah,
I think it's interesting. You know, it's not like he's a slouch of a coach or anything. You know.
Yeah, I mean Saban, Eberflus is not.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Saban.
Man, have you watched any of the? Have you watched? No. I want to get everyone's take. Like I think Caleb Williams is going to be a phenomenal player.
Yeah, me too.
I don't think he'll excel until he gets a coach that can challenge him. I think.
Yeah,
Matt Eberflus is not that dude. You know, he's like trying to talk to him. He asked Nick Saban too, like how he managed the quarterbacks and all that stuff. You see him trying to apply it. Caleb Williams like, okay.
Right.
like, all right, man.
Yeah,
you're in over your head. You realize that this kid has more power in the organization than you, and
right. It's hard, you know. The first overall pick in the draft is they've essentially committed to. They traded the other guy to make room for him. You know, not that Fields was you know, a world beater or anything. But yeah, I mean, that kid has all the power right now, so it's hard for a young fledgling coach to kind of get his hooks in there and get that culture built. But hopefully he does. I don't have anything against the guy. You know, hopefully they're able to figure it out. It would be fun to see the Bears have a good quarterback for once.
I mean, I don't know that I care, but
I mean, it's different. You know,
I mean, they've never had one, so I don't know if I want them to have one. I don't know that I want him to pop before Bo Nix does. You know, like pop at the same time. Then I'll be like, oh yeah, cool, Chicago got one. NFC because I don't care, like all that stuff.
Fair enough.
Yes, but if they get one and Bo Nix ain't it, then I'll be a little bitter.
Yeah, that'll be frustrating. I get that.
But I want the NFC to be as strong as it can be every year. I just want those teams to beat the crap out of each other because then I can root for them. It's good football I can watch and like not care.
Yep.
You know, it doesn't necessarily impact the AFC playoff picture, you know? So, yeah, sure. Caleb Williams, Jared Goff, Jordan Love, get good, you know? And then they got Sam Darnold. So what a quarterback. Given. But McCarthy might be it. I mean, we could blink. That might, in 5 years, that might be like the best quarterback division.
Yeah, I haven't heard good things about McCarthy. You know, I feel a little unsure being such a McCarthy guy going into the draft. Now I'm backpedaling a little bit, but I'm gonna stick with it and let's see what comes to fruition, because that was one that hurt me a little bit just because he's a Michigan guy. But I think there's talent. There was talent and potential there, but it sounds like in camp he's been a little bit suspect so far.
Yeah, I think he's drinking through a hose. Like he just turned 21.
Yeah, so that's true. That's true.
If anyone thinks he's going to be anything anytime soon, don't. I think Sam Darnold will take some bullets. I think that they'll play all right. I think Sam Darnold will play okay for them. And then you just hope that he picked up the playbook, because next year you really can't justify like a top 10-ish pick and he gets 2 years sitting on the bench, like
right.
Maybe, but that's if you're sitting behind Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers or Drew Brees, like you're sitting behind Hall of Fame, not Sam.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
all right. Well, let's jump into some Colorado sports talk, since that's why we're here after all.
Yeah.
And we're just going to briefly touch on the Colorado Avalanche real quick. Avs added another defenseman in Oliver Kylington. He signed a 1-year contract. Good depth addition, cheap. I think it was like 1.05 million or something like that. Another guy that is just good rotational potential, special teams, PK guy. Someone who you could see kind of in that solid top 6 potentially. There will be a little bit of battle at the bottom of that group with Calvin DeHaan and Brandstrom, but looks like, they've made some solid signings. They're trying to get better. They're doing it on a budget. It's going to be really interesting to kind of watch this team as the season approaches. You've got the Nichushkin situation. You got the Landeskog situation. Both of those are potentially a lot of money on the books. And you may have to make a move to clear up space if they end up both coming back. Obviously Nichushkin would be late in the season, if at all. And then we'll have to kind of keep an eye on Gabe as training camp rolls around pretty soon here. But interesting addition. I think I like it. Add some depth, add some versatility to that defensive core. Maybe gives you some tradable assets if you feel like you need to go get a forward, which is what we're talking about. Which was what has been talked about a little bit as far as a weakness for this team so far. But just to touch on that, any thoughts on that specifically?
It's another piece of the puzzle. We talked about the really securing kind of the back end of the back end.
Yeah.
So I think that one, I think it's a good move. It stinks because it looks like he's been available every other year. So you hope. Last year was a pretty unavailable year. Year before that, it was like 72 games. Year before that, it was like 3. Year before that, it was a lot of games. So you think like, all right, this year I'll probably get the most of him. And if he's a +2, +3, if he's anywhere near that, from a 6th or 7th defenseman.
Yeah, especially if he's on power or like penalty kill.
Yep. Yeah. So I think it's a good move. Like you said, you listening to AJ Hafley or check out some of their stuff over at DNVR. I would delegate for sure on their knowledge of him. But these are the smart moves that they had to make. I really do like their offseason. I think it's an interesting contrast when you're watching what the Avs did to what the Nuggets did.
Yeah.
And it's not apples to apples, but I think the Avs had a fairly successful offseason. Not even considering where they were at. I think that they addressed some of those pieces, got guys back on good deals. Like, I mean, they were, negotiating maybe in good faith or good favor, and it worked out.
Yeah.
Now you look at if Gabe Landeskog comes back and he's 75%, that's a pretty damn good player.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
Al will come back, and I actually think I'm a fan of this now. I thought maybe you could dump him. But he's going to come back, and essentially if he has another strike, he's out and his contract is null and void. So really if he comes back and even, he can't use the Colombian Bam Bam as much as he would have liked.
Right.
Maybe he's 80% of himself, but then you got 75% of Gabe, 80% of Al. And, those are two pieces added in your depth that pushes some of the other guys back down.
Yeah.
Then I think you feel really good about where you're at. So assuming maybe even you only get one of them back. That's still pretty positive. And so I think they've done a really good job in maneuvering, and especially with the hard cap. There's no aprons. There's no dead money. There's no, stuff that you can move around. And I really like where they're at. So I like this move again. It's just shrewd. Keep picking up pieces in the waves. I like the continued focus on addressing the roster and making moves, even if they're that small. I think it also sends a really good message to your team that we believe in you and we're going to keep adding NHL talent to the roster. It's not one leg in now and one leg in the future. It's, these guys right now, and we're going to see what we can do. So I like it. I don't know. I don't know that's going to have like a major impact night in and night out necessarily, but I do think, again, the more you elevate the floor, the less the guys at the top have to do. And, you don't get Nathan McKinnon carrying the entire team on his back for, months on end, or at least the pressure to. And then if he does, that you're just better for it versus you need him to. And if he doesn't, I do expect probably a more even season from Cale Makar. I think with guys like this, that can soak up some minutes. He was kind of beat up intermittently in and out. I feel like it was inconsistent. Great season, but for him, it felt like it was just like waves of really phenomenal, and then not really hearing from him. And then he's out a game or two for this, and then he's back in, like all that. I think if you can get that, if you can get Mikko settled, he was, in my opinion, pretty uneven too. And then
pretty hot and cold.
Yeah, and then kind of a no-show in the playoffs. I think the more depth that they have might equal less wins. Maybe they're the 6th seed. But they go in, I think, with more cohesion and more guys willing to hold the flag. I think they'd be better for playoff time, which, let's be honest, that's what matters. Is this be tougher? Have guys that have played good minutes in the playoffs, good track record, professional guys that are going to do their job, and I think they've added a bunch of those.
Yeah, I think so too. I've always, since the new GM took over, I've been impressed by the moves, like you said, the shrewdness that they've shown, the high or low risk, high reward guys that they've signed. We've got good productivity out of guys, even if they haven't been here long term. Yep. If we continue to make those kinds of signings, that'll do a lot for this team.
Yeah.
Let's jump over to the Denver Nuggets, or at least some of the Denver Nuggets players. Nikola Jokic moves on in the Olympic tournament with a big overtime win against Australia after coming back from, I think, 20 or 22 points, something like that. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to watch because it was 6:30 a.m. on a work day. But I did watch the highlights. I did see basically it was kind of a tale of two games for Jokic, is what it seemed like. He came out a little bit slow. That starting unit got behind early on, and Australia kind of took a lead. I think probably through most of the second half, and then Serbia kind of started closing in a little bit as the second quarter. Sorry, I meant second quarter, not second half. As the second quarter went on, we're able to kind of close that gap a little bit, and then weren't able to close the door on Patty Mills, who just turned into a sharpshooter during the Olympics. Pretty amazing showing from him. I don't know what his shooting percentage was from three, but he was insane. He was, all these movement threes, these pick and pop threes, and just kind of creating for himself, which at that age and kind of the veteran guy that he is and isn't surprising. Patty Mills is a guy that I liked for a long time and kind of fell into a backup and like minimal minutes role. Maybe he boosted his worth a little bit, but regardless, that was a good team. It was a good team. Serbia struggled early. They didn't bring intensity, but Jokic's last 5 minutes of the regulation and then 5 minutes in overtime just dominated the way that he knows how to dominate. He picks up the team, all boats rise with him. He got especially on defense, which I think is the surprising part, got some steals, had a block, which is a little funny in the Olympics and Euro ball because it was off the rim, which you can't do in the NBA. But pity of him, just an overall Jokic performance. Oh, and a Sombor shuffle to kind of seal it, which I miss. I miss that. I miss that for the Nuggets right now. But great to see.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you got to hear the call too for the Serbian. The radio, and it's just like, I mean, even in English, right? Oh, the Serbian shuffle.
Sombor shuffle. Yeah.
I mean, when he hits the shot, they don't even describe the shot; they just start laughing. And I think that's such a good indictment of how ridiculous he is. Like he's just,
for sure.
Like it's like losing at pickup, to the old grandpa down the street. He's just, hitting fadeaways on you. And I mean, who's on that Serbian roster? I mean, that really is like not good.
Bogdanovic is the only NBA guy that I'm aware of. There may be one more.
Yeah, and maybe
something. But I don't think many of them are NBA caliber guys. No. At least not at the moment.
It's pretty light. By far, I think out of the teams that were in the final 8, I think the least amount of talent probably. And so again, you're seeing a team, tell me if you've heard this before, that's like you said, right? Like rising tide elevates all boats. And so that is Nikola Jokic. And I think, you heard Kendall Perkins? Kendall.
No.
Kevin?
Kendrick.
Thank you. I knew. I was like, something's not right here.
I can see it on your face.
Kendrick Perkins, who has been a Jokic hater in the past, was singing praises about he again showed he's the best in the world, and the USA is fully aware of it, and that they're not going to take a nap. For all reminders, when he was on the floor, it was an even game during their group play game, and I think they were outscored 29-3 or something, 23-9 or 20.
Something crazy, yeah.
Yeah, in the 9 minutes he was off the floor. So I think that goes to show how good that man is at basketball. And again, just more appreciation of we're pretty spoiled. We get that guy, and everything that he brings. The lack of negativity, right? I don't know how people don't root for him all the time. He is.
I know.
He legitimately is it's just kind of a good beacon of what we would want our athletes to be. He's not a me guy. He's a guy that treats the sport that he dominates at like a job because he values his family, just all the stuff. You'd think you'd love that stuff.
Yeah.
But it is just another example of we hate people on top, which is fair because I hate the Yankees. I only hate the Yankees because they're, and so I'm excited to see how this goes. Patty Mills, man, he made his chops at the Olympics, I think 8 years ago, right? That was when Patty came out. Who is that dude? One, because most times you haven't seen a lot of Black Australians, that aren't native to the continent. And so, snap! Not only is he a hooper, he's got an accent. Oh, it's because he's Australian. And so I agree with you too. How he hasn't had when you were able to turn it on like this, and he has in every Olympic or international play. He's Australia basketball.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a little bit more talent now. A couple guys that actually got, I think, top 10 picks right this year, or in the first round, I think, out of Australia, first time ever. And so I think a lot of that has to do with how good Patty Mills has been, and especially on an international scale. So that was a phenomenal game. Some really good talent across the other games. So kind of looking at France's team when we talk about Jamal Murray and Canada. Canada favored, France knocking them off, which when you look at France's roster, right, Nicolas Batum, you got Rudy Gobert, you got Victor Wembanyama. You got some guys who have been all-stars on teams.
Yeah.
Canada, who has, NBA starters, a couple all-stars too. And so that looks to be kind of when the final 8 was around. Most of the mix-up except Brazil. I don't remember a Brazilian basketball player outside of Leandro Barbosa or Nene in time. And that also could be because I'm not deep diving most guys that aren't on Nuggets or all that good stuff. But a lot of talent there. Super disappointed in Jamal Murray's output. I'm actually more concerned, and I'm going to lead into this part. So Jamal Murray, as we all know, is Canadian and was chosen to represent Canada and Canada's national team for this Olympics. Started out in the starting 5, quickly moved. I think missed a game or two, and then moved to the bench.
Yeah, he was away from the team for some reason. I don't think we ever really determined why exactly that was. But.
Yeah, and in doing so, we're in the middle of the max contract that the Nuggets have offered. Conversations were left and right about that. Disgruntled Jamal, all those things. Calvin Booth, Nuggets GM, essentially saying, there are things in that contract based on conditioning, and we need the best version of Jamal, and what we got wasn't it. And most of us are the guy just won a championship for you last year, and essentially beat the Lakers twice to get to the second round of the playoffs.
Yeah.
But again, in sports, right? It isn't what you've done for me lately, league, right? It's what are you going to do now? And now we've removed a little bit. Either Jamal Murray loves Canada so much that he subjected his body to even more wear and tear, or ego. He's that good and all that good stuff. But I'm disappointed that we're here, whatever that is. His play has been shooting 10% from 3-point line, 30% overall. Just not good. It also isn't an environment that really brings out what he does or doesn't do well. He's an on-ball guy, and if SGA, like, nope, he needs the ball. Sorry, you are not as good as that guy. And they either didn't find a way to really work him in different ways, or he didn't make himself available. I don't know. I don't know how Jamal is. I don't know him personally, so I can't really speak to the effort that they made. But overall, maybe Calvin Booth is right. Maybe he is a guy that you want some of those things in play. And so overall, knowing that we need that guy to be playoff Jamal, and not this last playoffs, previous playoffs Jamal, essentially a healthy Jamal. And I don't know that we'll get it. And I feel a little bit more down on the Nuggets outlook, knowing that, he essentially has like 2 months to get right. And you hope that he has enough time to get right and be ready for basketball to jump in and start playing. So I don't know. There aren't a lot of other options. So essentially it's going to be, like you said, down with the ship, or I'm not sure. What are your thoughts about Jamal's play, all that good stuff, and where we're at right now?
I mean, there aren't options right now, but you move someone and you move a bigger piece, and then there becomes opportunity for options. And one of those could be Jamal, at the end of the day. And I'm not saying that that's what I want, or that I think best case scenario, Jamal takes a couple months off, is ready to go for the regular season, is healthy, and then we just play it out, and hopefully he maintains his health. That's what I want to see. I'm a Jamal fan. I think what he brings to this Denver Nuggets roster is special, and I think he showed that in the playoffs. But I think there is concern, and I think that there is legitimate concern. Coach Carl put on social media that essentially that Jamal looked like kind of a miserable player for Canada, that he hung his head, that he took a me approach. And I think, it wouldn't surprise anyone if that was the case. I think with Jamal, he's a proud guy. He's an ultimate competitor. He is sometimes really short and really tough on media, particularly. But I don't think that, and I think he has a bit of an ego, and I think you need that in a league like the NBA.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really translate well when you are thrown into a situation like he was with Canada when they brought him off the bench, essentially, in the majority of those games.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you think you're a starter and starter potential. I think that he was probably a better starter than RJ Barrett, but the coaching staff didn't necessarily agree. A coaching staff that I think their coach was Jordi Fernandez, who was an assistant coach with the Nuggets.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting little piece of information there. So it's just one of those things. Like, I could see it going either way. The good thing is that he is a top 2 guy on this team. It's Jokic and it's him. And so we don't really have to worry about that with the NBA season. But it does concern you, his lack of ability to show up and his lack of ability to potentially put in effort in a role that he doesn't necessarily agree with. You worry about sportsmanship, you worry about dynamic with teammates down the road, potentially, as some of these young guys start to emerge. I think that it's something that the Nuggets and Nuggets fans should keep an eye on. However, I'm not ready to give up on Jamal. I don't know that the majority of Nuggets fans are, but I think that it just does make you scratch your head a little bit and say, I hope he's not losing it a little bit. I hope he's not losing himself a little bit. I hope he's not drinking too much of the Kool-Aid on himself. Just maybe it's just a hiccup in the off season, and then we get back to business. But something to keep an eye on for sure.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I think we'll see what he thinks about his future, right? And I think in a guy that thinks he should be a Hall of Famer, like, I think Jamal Murray recognizes how good he is in the playoffs and how much that matters. I don't know that he understands totality of of what it's going to take. But we'll see. We'll see what shape he kind of comes in.
That's always a question.
I'm kind of like, all right, now if they play, if they both amicably, if they both decide that he is going to play this out and they're going to let it ride out without doing a contract the rest of the season and kind of pick it up before free agency starts after the season, because he can get more money in Denver. So that number can't change right now. Right. And so, maybe that's one where they decide, hey, we've had our run, this is as good as it's going to get. And then maybe a sign and trade is available if he thinks he can get that somewhere else, that someone else is willing to pay him that money.
Someone will be. I mean, that's the thing too about it, is like someone will be willing to trade if that's the route they go. It'll be probably an Eastern Conference team that is in the playoff hunt that needs, someone who's a good playoff performer and can raise their team a little bit. And then if it doesn't work out, then they clear that cap space the next year. You'll find someone who will be able to. It's more of a math equation about who can and can't. But I think that if the right team emerges or the right team finds themselves in a playoff position, it's a contract that you can move. Yeah. Now I'm not saying that they should, but I think that that's something that we'll have to kind of keep an eye on, unless he signs this extension, and then then it becomes a little more of an ordeal.
Yep.
And one more thing just to keep an eye on. Mm-hmm. Embiid has some ankle soreness prior to their game against Serbia. Does that surprise anyone? I just had to throw that in there because I thought that was funny.
Did you hear Chuck go after him? I mean, it really is just soft, man. He wasn't conditioned. He's representing our country, and he shows up half-assed, essentially.
Yeah, and he's taunting the crowd.
I mean, Joel Embiid is a talented basketball player, 100%. I think we all agree, right? I mean, talent-wise, he's top 5 in the NBA, size, 100%. Skill. For the grief that we're giving Jamal for not showing up, Joel doesn't either. And, his lack of fortune with injuries, a lot of that is due to how conditioned you are. The more that you train and properly prepare your body, the less likely it is that you are going to have injuries. You have to address, 7-foot people weren't built to run around the way that basketball players do. So you have to train, or you're going to that's also the thing that makes you tens of millions of dollars every year, dear goodness gracious. And why he was starting in the first place, I bet that was some backdoor deal because he was going to play for the U.S. and not camp. I don't even know. It's nice again, though, that it's not a Nuggets fan challenging thing. It's I think the world again is getting to see more of Joel is a me guy for sure.
Yeah.
And it next to guys that are willing to sacrifice. LeBron's shooting less. Tatum gets 5 minutes a game. Guys like doing that, and I don't hear crap about Jason Tatum.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Being a me guy or getting upset, I'd be pissed. I just won a championship, all that stuff, and I'm the 12th option. That said, that's what they sign up for. They get it. They're all for one for all, and then there's Joel Embiid, who's just Joel Embiid.
For sure.
Feel good. Yeah, I hope Jokic. I hope the USA wins by 2, and Joel Embiid bricks a game-winning shot, and Nikola Jokic, or he bricks his only shot, and Nikola Jokic has a triple-double.
Oh yeah, we need a Jokic.
I'll notice again that I single-handedly carried a country of 900,000 people to one of the greatest assemblies of talent in the history of sports.
Yeah,
that team is absurd. That is probably one of the first teams that I could say could challenge the dream team. I'd feel like that would be a competitive 7-game series. They put it together. So go USA. And now let's talk some foosball, Bobby.
Let's talk football. Let's get into the Broncos. They released an initial depth chart, which is something I know we've been speculating about and excited to see. So let's just touch base on that a little bit. And I don't know that there's any real surprises. I mean, maybe that Bo Nix is slotted at QB3, but like we said, it's an initial.
A little bit about like the why, right? So the league mandates that that teams provide that. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that up for our folks here.
Yeah.
And just be able to look at it, but the league mandates it. So just for everyone to be aware, it's not that they want to do this. It's essentially to be a part of gambling. They want to be on the up and up, and just to give us degenerates an inside knowledge. So there is a bunch of things I think we can go here. Let's just go top to bottom.
Okay.
I've been at practice 3 times now.
Yep.
And I do not remember Tim Patrick making a play the entire time I've been there.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's not been a name that we've heard a lot.
Nope. And so him being the first in line when he hasn't took a first team rep that I've seen, I think goes to show a little bit about where this whole thing is going. But I don't have any problem with it either, because I know how good Tim Patrick is. So maybe they want younger guys to get more run with the ones because they're trying to decide on wide receiver number 3 or whatever, whatever that might be.
Right.
And I would be okay if starting game 1, Tim Patrick is your starting X or starting Z. I don't think that'll be the case. I think it's going to be very difficult for Tim Patrick to make this roster. For a guy that's going to be fighting for 4th or 5th receiver snaps that no longer plays special teams.
Yep.
And coming off some significant injuries, I think that'll be a little difficult. That said, receivers, your first 2, Courtland Sutton and Tim Patrick. Sure. Courtland Sutton is wide receiver 1 at this time. We've talked about that, you and I.
Yep.
Marvin Mims, Josh Reynolds, the next 2 guys in line. Yep. I think that makes sense. In the end, if you were to tell me that the Broncos 1 through 4 is those guys in no particular order.
Yep, for sure.
I think the interesting thing to get to is Troy Franklin essentially is the 6th receiver on the depth chart. And I think that goes to show that every rookie is going to be at the end of their position block. So I think
100%.
Them out, that isn't something. So I don't, Devon Vele, who has been phenomenal in camp. The days that I have been there, he's oohed and awed. I heard again today was another strong day. Essentially, once a day, Vele is making something happen. You add the fact that he's going to play special teams. I really see a challenge for some other guys making the roster. Same with little Jordan Humphrey. I've actually been really impressed by him in camp. You got Brandon Johnson, who was a good contributor last year. Good size, speed guy, plays special teams. Devon Still's probably going to be a practice squad guy again. Michael Bandy, I really like. He's really the only true slot guy.
Yeah.
And then you got Jalen Virgil, who has had a cup of tea, and Troy Franklin, Philip Dorsett, former first-round pick. There's going to be there might not be a lot at the top. Right? So this might not be a star-studded group. It's not Miami. But it's a high-floor group. And so I'm interested because of this depth chart. It doesn't align with what I've seen, that's for sure. I think Tim Patrick and Philip Dorsett would be more of that. And Troy Franklin's came on as of late, which has been nice. I mean, it was bust out super loud from the Raptors. But and I think Josh Reynolds right now would be your wide receiver too. He has been a revelation.
Yeah, he's been great.
He's been great. So that would be my one adjustment, kind of looking at it. Any issues in your opinion in the wide receiver? Maybe even lump in the tight end group there with your take.
Yeah. No, I the Tim Patrick thing was probably the thing that stuck out most for sure. I think you expect those 4 though to be your top 4: Sutton, Tim Patrick, Marvin Mims, Josh Reynolds, and I think that's fair. And I think that's there's something to be a veteran wide receiver, a veteran core player, and just kind of that's where you're going to be slotted. I do think Tim Patrick is potentially on the chopping block still. Like you said, there's a lot of depth and talent in this wide receiver room, so it'll be interesting to see how all that shakes out. But I think that the preseason games are going to be really telling. I think you're going to see more of these young guys, more opportunities for guys like Bailey to go out and pop. Some of these guys like Brandon Johnson and Sills and Bandy, like these guys will have some opportunities to get in there and show what they have. Virgil, same thing. It's just a deep room, and it's a fun room that's gonna be interesting to watch shake out. As far as tight ends, it's about what I expected. Troutman 1, Dulcich 2, Kroll 3, and then you got Atkins, which I mentioned when we went last Wednesday. I was like, oh, I forgot he was on the team. I actually do like Nate Atkins a little bit. So that'll be interesting to watch that shake out a little bit too. I don't know how much we're going to see of Dulcich and Troutman in the preseason. Because Troutman's kind of just your plug and play consummate professional, and Dulcich has been injury prone, so I don't know how much they want to push it. But I would be interested to see Dulcich get some run, just to see him on the field again, just to get some reps. Kroll, this will be his opportunity to break out, like all of the Kroll believers on Twitter believe he can. So it'll be fun to watch him as well. Any surprise on that offensive line? It looks like they slotted Wattenberg in at starting center over Forsyth and Mustafer. Any surprise there?
No, actually, this is one where I'd have it too. I think Wattenberg has taken all the first team reps.
Yeah.
He's also got a little bit more of the vet stamp on him, I guess.
Yeah.
What I'm interested in, I haven't really paid attention to, but who's going to be the third tackle? I think Matt Pert is a physically gifted player. Didn't do much with his opportunities in New York, and so maybe he can come here with more consistent coaching and be something. Palszewski is my guy.
I love that guy.
Former Illinois guy, got hurt last year, so really wasn't able to have that potential back pocket, college free agent to starter story. I think it can. Again, he got made a couple All-America teams, which is just super interesting. Not a bad athlete, but nothing that jumps out at you. I hope again that he provides this team with, maybe he's the reason they haven't drafted tackles.
Yeah, maybe.
And so I really like that. And Throckmorton is a guy that's had experience both inside and outside, and played for Sean Payton, I think, in 2021. So you feel pretty good, I think, about the backups there. The third string guys, I think Gargiulio, who is your son's favorite player, as he got a picture with him when I took him to the camp last week.
Yeah.
Sweet stash and all. He's probably a practice squad guy. Same with Jacobs. Probably the same with Crum. I thought maybe there'd be a tough time keeping him on the active. I just haven't seen a lot of him to feel like he's a guy that's going to jump up. So
yeah,
the offensive line looks right, and so does the from the starters to the third string. So I think we're all set there. I'll kick it over to running backs a little bit and quarterbacks. We can kind of talk about the backfield together. Samaje Perine, in my opinion, is the guy with the hottest seat. That said, Javonte would be number 2. Javonte has looked better. I think you and I talked about that.
Yeah.
Last. That said, Audric Estime has been a talk of the town. And so I could see, not that I would encourage, but I could see Samaje Perine and Javonte Williams not being here, because I think that you can find solid running backs, older guys that are going to get cut or maybe moved on from, as training camp ends. So if you wanted to stay young with Estime, McLaughlin, and Watson, I think you could. I think they're going to try and get Blake Watson through to the practice squad. I don't know if they're going to try and keep 4 guys, but I know one of Javonte and Samaje won't be on this team come week 1. I'm pretty certain of that. It'll just be the construct of that. Do they keep through?
Yeah.
Which I think that they could. And then I think we all know the quarterback breakdown is not how it is in camp. Essentially, Bo Nix gets 60% of the first string snaps. And right now, Jarrett Stidham gets 40% of the first string snaps. So those two are still in a competition. With Zach Wilson kind of being the third. I think them understanding that he's a reclamation project. He's not necessarily he's ready to go win us football games now. So I get why they did it. Humble sauce for all that. It goes to show again a little bit about how of a waste of time Sean Payton thought of this to have it that way. What's your take on the backfield? Anything that worries you or what have you?
No, I like the personnel. I think you're right. I think P. Ryan's probably on the hot seat. I don't know that I see them moving off of Williams. I think he'll get a chance. Mm-hmm. But I could see that eventually happening if for some reason Devontae was to get hurt. Estime kind of runs in a similar fashion. Is younger. He's a little beat up right now, right? I think he's still recovering from an injury, so we'll see how much we actually get to see of him in the preseason. Interesting that Beatty was above him on the depth chart, but again, that speaks more to the rookie with a veteran old school head coach as well. I think you're just going to see Estime and Blake Watson at the bottom of that regardless until they kind of earn it. But yeah, no, I like the group. I like the room. It'll be interesting to see how they shake out. And then, let's jump to the defensive side now because we got to run through it and we got to get to a little what we're looking for in the preseason game too. Not many big question marks with the starters, in my opinion. Your D lines, what do you expect? It's Zach Allen, it's DJ Jones, Jonathan Franklin Myers, and then you got Jonathan Cooper, outside linebacker, Baron Browning, Alex Singleton. Then you've got a Jonas Griffith or Cody Barton, which is interesting. I think that's funny that they just didn't slot one or the other. They're just like, hey, open competition, here it is. Same with your right side cornerback. They got Damari Mathis or Riley Moss. Yeah. So that means we'll see a good bit of both of those in preseason, I'm guessing. Obviously, Pat Surtain's your number one. McMillan's your starting nickel guy. PJ Locke, Brandon Jones, which is what you expect. Anything interesting there, at least with the starters for you?
No, I think maybe just to know, I don't think we've been on since Caden Stearns was released.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
So, it's just interesting of note. Goes to show, he wasn't – they didn't think of him as a starter, and so having him have an opportunity to go move on and find another team, which I do think he got claimed in Carolina. I think Carolina claimed him.
Oh, let's see. I'll look it up.
Ejiro Evero. Nothing shocking. I do think the or is interesting, especially because I think Levi Wallace was in, or maybe had the opportunity to compete for that right corner job. So the fact that he's not in the or and listed really as the backup on the other side, I think that's telling in that Riley and Damari have played well enough that this team feels good about one of them being it and not have to have the vet be there. I do like Art Green. I really hope that he's a guy that can make this roster because he's a size speed guy, 6'2", like 4'3", 40. So just an interesting note of there. But no, the starter, there's nothing new. I think Jonas and Cody Barton both provide something. So I bet that they're going to kind of take from each other's play a lot.
Yeah.
And PJ, and we haven't really got to see Brandon Jones much, but PJ has looked good when he's been out there. As we move to look at kind of the second level of this, JL Skinner has looked really good. That is your guy for sure. I think with his elevation of play, Caden Stearns became expendable.
For sure.
They did right by Caden, knowing that JL has looked good, and that's a guy that they want to really continue to incorporate in the defense. Not fair, really, to Caden. Or you're not doing him a solid if he's going to be a guy that probably is going to get squeezed out closer to the start of the season. Go let him catch on, and I think they did right there. Reese Taylor has been a guy that I've heard a lot about. He made a couple plays when I was out there last on Monday. But he's a guy that I think is making a push to make the roster. I think that one would be pretty interesting. Guy from nowhere, similar to Jaquan McMillan, kind of. He also could be a guy that maybe they put on the practice squad, and then he gets shuttled up just like Jaquan McMillan. And then lastly, I think it'll be interesting where Chris Abrams-Drain finishes out on the depth chart.
Yeah, me too.
Because Tremont Smith is a really, really good special teamer. I think with the kicking game and the adjustment that it's made there, I think it's probably added emphasis on the importance of him. I do hope they utilize him in the return game before. He's been pretty good at it in the history of his stops. I think that would reduce some of the wear and tear probably on Mims. Plus, you're paying like $5 million to be a special teamer or something.
Right.
Like, let's get all of that. One thing I do find interesting on here is Thomas Incoom is your fourth rusher, which they're going to keep Jonah Ellis, so we know that they're going to keep 5 probably then. And Thomas Incoom has been one of the best players in camp, and just so everyone's aware, that's one of my guys. And so I'm excited about that. I think, again, that's Shaq Barrett. That's continuing to find and develop. I think the plan that they've had throughout the years is go get a very high productive, a edge rusher that's had high production regardless of where it's at, right? So Shaq Barrett, I think, led the nation playing at Colorado State. And I think that Thomas Incoom led the NCAA, or was one of the NCAA leaders in sacks his senior year. And so really utilizing that as a springboard. There's usually going to be guys maybe that are in lesser programs, lesser of a athletic profile, right? Missing something, height, length, whatever that might be,
right.
but sure as hell produces. Those are guys that you can. I mean, look at Shaq Barrett, just recently retired, but went from practice squad kind of guy to the NFL sack leader with Tampa. I mean, it's a smart way to go about it. I think in some of those positions, go get high production guys. They're winners in some sense, so it overcomes some of the athletic traits. And if you're looking at filling in the back end of your roster, only going for athletic marbles who haven't had the chance yet, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
I think leads you to some false hope. Like you hang in with a guy because of his athletic prowess longer instead of just finding good football players. Like, save the athletic profiles for rounds 1 through 3 or 1 through 4, and then the rest of it being get guys that produce what it takes to get the job done. And those are guys that probably are more adept at getting coached and can provide you a higher floor. So super excited about that. Ini Wazirike getting reinstated, I think throws a nice curveball in there, because I don't think he has a long way to go to make this roster.
Yeah, for
physically, sure. He's probably one of the impressive specimens on this defense, height, weight, length. And he will be interesting because Sean Payton talked about maybe having him stand up on the edge a little bit with some versatility. So I think they want to try and help him make the roster. I don't know if he would be a guy that would get through to practice squad, maybe because of the gambling, but
maybe.
But he's a guy that I would love to see kind of hopefully get caught up and get a fair shake. So I don't see anything, especially on defense. I think it's very chalk. I think it is what we thought it would be outside of the rookies being at the way back. But seeing it, to be honest, I feel a little bit better about the defensive depth. Really.
Yeah, I can see that. And I do still worry a little bit about that cornerback room. I do think it's probably better than I initially give him credit for. That is actually one of the more interesting battles to me going into preseason is Damari Mathis, Riley Moss. Moss hasn't really had a chance to prove it. Damari Mathis got some play last year, and sometimes rose to the occasion, but more often than not didn't. So I think it's an opportunity for him to kind of prove why he was put in that position to begin with. And it's an opportunity for Riley Moss to say like, hey, I'm here, I'm on the scene, I'm healthy. Let's see what we got. Love that JL Skinner's moving up the depth chart. I had nothing against Caden Stearns. I did like Caden Stearns. I thought he had some upside. But ultimately, if the coaching staff doesn't think he's got it, wants to give him an opportunity to catch on with another roster, I can respect that. And like I said, makes way for my guy JL, I've been on for quite a while now. So excited to see him kind of move up the depth chart. Otherwise, yeah, outside of Ellis being a little lower, I'm not surprised really that he's behind Nkum. Because he's a rookie, but also because Nkum has been playing so good. I think, Ellis is, I don't know that he's a lock to make this roster, but I think unless he plays really, really poorly through camp and preseason, he'll be one that catches on. So it'll make those final cuts a little bit interesting to watch. And, essentially you've got Malcolm Roach slotted ahead of Matt Henningsen, which a lot of Broncos fans really enjoy Matt Henningsen. Yeah. He's kind of one of those football players that you were talking about. Go get a player, go get someone that has the size profile and is a competitor, versus Malcolm Roach, who's a guy that has been a system guy for the Saints. You know what you're getting with him. Yeah. That'll be interesting to watch. Otherwise, I think it's been, like you said, kind of what you expect. And I'm excited to kind of watch as everything gets pared down a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's talk preseason game on Sunday. Your Denver Broncos take on the Colts, and we'll get some. We'll get to see. Presumably, we'll get to see Bo Nix on the field. We'll get to see a lot of these guys.
I really bet that the Broncos. Their first unit is going to play a lot. I think Dulcich is going to play in at least 2 games. I think they're going to want, to have him have some experience in games. They managed him really well. He hasn't missed a lot of time. I'm actually super impressed right now with how they've managed him, and maybe that strength and conditioning program that Broncos have now, and having kind of a full year to get him in and get him ready. Not that Landau was the problem, but I think he is going to benefit maybe the most out of anyone. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see him. I hope. Here's what I think will happen. Here's what I hope happens. So one, I think Jared Stidham's going to start.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just a nod to, which is just so weird, man. I get it. You got to play to the locker room and all that good stuff. But when I have been out there most of the days, and for what has been reported, there is little to no difference in the negative for Bo Nix.
Correct.
And there's some areas where he is drastically better than Jared Stidham. Athleticism, it sounds like even under pressure, he's had some much better periods than Stidham. Stidham probably just it's smoother operation, and you think with a year plus in there. And I think Bo Nix is going to play the second and the third quarter. I think they're going to give him elongated look. And then Zach will get the final opportunity. I think starters will play in the first and the second preseason game, and then miss that third week.
Yeah.
And so I expect to see kind of the majority of the group out, and it'll be interesting to, in my opinion, like who suits up at the cornerback position, and who's the first linebacker to go out with, next to Alex Singleton. Those are really like the up for grab positions.
Yeah.
Wattenberg was clear leader at the center position. And to be honest, I couldn't even tell you who would be winning that battle. Neither of them get blown out I've seen, but I also don't know the nuances of what they're calling and how he's relaying the checks and all that good stuff. So that one I leave to the coaches, kind of whoever they put there. I also think it's a position you can go get a vet after people are cut if you don't feel real good about that. I think that's what they've done with Mustafa. He has not impressed me at all. I barely even know that he's out there. So, but we'll see. I think now that it's televised, playing against someone else, I think we'll get a good idea of this offensive line and some of those position battles. So, what are you looking for first? And if we were to do this pod on Monday, what do you want to be able to say? What would be your wish on Monday? Like we're talking about what? So,
yeah. I mean, I think first and foremost, it's got to start with the quarterbacks. It's got to start with Bo Nix, right? I think that's what everyone is anticipating, and that's the most important position on the field, And so, I think if I'm not expecting him to go out and be a world beater, I'm expecting him to go out, execute the offense that's put in front of him. It would be nice to see him make some plays down the field, test that arm a little bit, take some shots. I don't know that we'll see a lot of that, but it wouldn't put it past him. I would like to see more of him operating from the pocket and making throws as opposed to using his legs and athleticism, which I think he does have, and he's shown that a little bit. But I think, I think part of the reason that we are so intrigued by him is because of his ability to process and play make from the pocket, throwing the ball. So I want to see him stand in there, maybe, I don't want him to take hits necessarily, but stand in there under some pressure and be able to deliver a ball. Utilize the middle of the field, which is something that we had gotten away from with Russell Wilson. So it'd be nice to see him to be able to make some throws across the middle of the field, and just kind of get his head around this offense and this offensive scheme. I know it's going to be simplified. We're not going to see all of the bells and whistles right now, but I think you want to see baby steps and you want to see progression. And I think as long as he's hitting his marks, that is, I don't know that it's the most we could ask for right now, but it's certainly the least we can ask for a young quarterback to come in and just be steady. Don't turn the ball over. Find the open guy, make the correct read, and then be on target with your passes. It's a lot. It sounds a lot easier when I say it that way than it probably actually is. But I think Broncos fans, we deserve that at the very least for the years of sad quarterback play that we've been exposed to. Other than that, I do want to see some of those position battles. I want to see Riley Moss on the field. I'm excited to see what he brings as a cornerback. Just some of these depth positions, some of these depth battles are going to be fun. We're going to get eyes on guys that we haven't really gotten eyes on, such as a JL Skinner, like we talked about, the Thomas Incoom, like we've been talking about for a little while now. We'll get to see them in the actual rotation and, putting together some multiple, I don't know if we would say starts, but have opportunity to flash.
Yeah.
And then, also just deep down the wide receiver chart, it'll be fun to kind of watch those guys, your Brandon Johnsons, your Jalen Virgils, your Troy Franklins, who pops, who wants it, your Velays, who's going to go out and get it and take advantage of the situation. As long as the Broncos remain injury-free, Bo Nix looks like a serviceable quarterback in his first preseason stint, and guys are out there competing. I think that is all I really want. How about you?
I want to look at it. I want to come in on Monday and be like, "Yep, Bo's the dude."
Yeah.
And though I think he will be, it would be nice if he went out with 2s and 3s and just rocked it. Because I think it's really difficult to do. Of course, playing against 2s and 3s is easier, but if you're playing with 2s and 3s, it's all moot.
Yeah.
And then I also want to come back in on Monday and say, I saw both the starters and the backups dominate in the trenches on both sides of the ball. Indy's got a really good offensive line, assuming that they bring, that they play their starters. Quentin Nelson, Braden Smith is a really good right tackle. Bernard Raymond has played well. I think he found himself last year. PFF had him as the number 7 tackle graded in the NFL last year. Ryan Kelly is when he's on the field is a phenomenal center. And then whoever they have at right guard, just fall down and we'll be okay. That said, they play again in the regular season. So I have no doubt that this will be a very vanilla contest. And I think it's also a team, Indy doesn't really have a lot of, in my opinion, really good pass catchers. So outside of Michael Pittman, I like Josh Downs and what he's provided. Alec Pierce is an okay player, but maybe they're a team that, going up against Denver, oftentimes teams that make deals are usually ones that have experience or just played or can attest to. And, maybe that's a team to look at about doing maybe a swapsies as preseason rolls around. So
Yeah.
Bo Nix is that dude. I want to check that off. And then I want to be able to come back in and say, the offensive defensive lines looked good.
Yeah, I think that is fair and hopefully reasonable. I am excited to see Awazarike back in there just to see the physical marvel that he is. Obviously, looking for good reps from Elijah Garcia. We're just rooting for that guy in general. But I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, let's answer this for our guy. Ty says, if we have time, what do you guys think about the Saints bringing in Simmons for a visit? Did hear that. It's interesting because the Saints do, I think, a really good job of like getting vets and coming in. The safety room right now is, I think it's Matthew and let me look.
Yeah, let's see.
Howden.
Yeah, Tyrann Mathieu, Jordan Howard.
Yeah, Howden.
Oh yeah, sorry, Howden. My bad.
Younger kid, 24. Nice size, 6 foot, 210, 449, 5th round pick last year. That said, I think if you add Justin Simmons next to Tyrann Mathieu, you have Lattimore and Pablo Adebo, who is a former Stanford guy, played really well. I really like him. And then you have Alani Taylor, really good physical specimen from Tennessee. I think that they recognize they probably got to win defense first. And so I think that's a good fit. And to be honest, it would be nice. 2 reasons. One, be nice because he goes to an NFC team.
Yeah,
go, man. I really like the Saints. I just, after Katrina, and
yeah,
stuff,
me too.
Definitely a team that I root for more than I don't. Plus, the Broncos get to play him again. And I'm all for storylines. And so that would be pretty cool if he gets a chance to go suit up against the team that drafted him, that also cut him, and remind them about what they missed.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's good. And I think that he's got a chance to be a starter there. And I think he's got a chance with his playmaking to be impactful. And I'm all for him getting that opportunity. Sad to see him go. You kind of hold on to the fact since he's been out there for a while that maybe somehow he ends up back with the team. But, I think we, as the season gets closer and closer, we're moving further and further away from that. And they obviously think enough of a guy like Skinner to move on from Stearns. And so, if something starts to lock or happens to lock or Johnson, then, you got a guy who can step in. I don't know that they're looking to necessarily fill that with Simmons. So, same way I feel about a lot of the guys that kind of do their time here is like, hey, give them an opportunity to go earn some money and be competitive somewhere else. And I think the Saints would be a good landing spot for them.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm for it. I bet if Simmons gets pulled in there, signs anywhere now, it's the understanding that you're coming in, with at least with the intent is that you start. Maybe you got to beat the, former starter, young kid who underachieved. But I think if Justin gets on the field, and with any amount of time, he's going to be a starter for whatever team picks him up. So I like it. Hopefully that helps the Saints out and keeps him out of the AFC. We were talking a few weeks ago about like maybe the Chiefs or the Raiders were teams that are interested. Like
that'd be awful.
Yeah, awful.
All right, we are wrapping up for the day. We'll be back next week. We're going to talk Broncos after their first preseason game, see what our takeaways were, that sort of thing. Try and get back out to camp. I don't think I'll be out there. Is it next week or the following week? I think next Wednesday I'll be out there, so I'll be able to bring that too. And just keep an eye on Jokic and the Olympics and what unfolds there. So lots to talk about, lots to keep tuned in for. But thank you, everyone. We appreciate you being here and supporting us as usual. Give us a shout out on social media, on Twitter. Interact with us. We love talking Colorado sports.
Well,
and if you just like getting into the weeds about any of the Broncos or Nuggets, Avs, Rockies, whoever, we're happy to cut it up with you. But thank you once again. And don't forget, if you need a sports prescription, ask a doctor.
Well,
fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast's racking up the flame out. So high I might never come down. So what? This is my lifestyle.